Have you ever seen something from the corner of your eye that wasn't there when you looked? How about hearing from a friend of a friend that while they were hiking somewhere, they thought they saw something impossible? When they spoke to a ranger, there was always a simple explanation that left you unsatisfied. My name's Chris, and this is my colleague Jack, and we are senior wardens for the Creature Conservation Initiative. We protect the world from the creatures of superstition and myth, but more importantly, protect those same creatures from the world. So, welcome everyone to the second episode of our podcast. Welcome back, Jack. It's good to have you here again. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good right now, thank you very much. How about yourself?
I'm still recovering, to be honest. I mentioned last week I had kind of a close encounter with the topic of our episode today.
Oh.
And we're talking about the Basilisk, which, as you might have heard, is kind of a dangerous creature if you are not careful around it.
Oh God, yeah, the basilisks. Well, I think, as I said at the end of the last episode, I've not really had too much interaction with basilisks, at least not directly. I've supported other teams that are going to deal with them, and as I understand it, you need a lot of support when you're going to deal with the basilisks.
Yeah.
But personally, I have not actually interacted with them.
Yeah, I've dealt with them a lot because I am German. I started in Germany, and there's a surprisingly big population of basilisks in Germany, and for some reason they've been basically all around Central Europe, but for some reason the German-speaking area like Germany, Austria, Switzerland, it seems to appeal to them to the extent that, as you might know, the city of Basel is named after the basilisk, and they have statues of basilisks all over the city. And yeah, for some reason, today they won't acknowledge that the creature is real anymore, even though they have plastered all over the town.
I mean, that kind of works for us, that if they don't acknowledge the things that are there,
of course,
makes it so much easier to keep them safe and hidden and keep the people hidden from them.
Yeah, it's just funny at the same time to be drinking out of a basilisk fountain, which is probably drinking water out of a basilisk's mouth is probably the last thing you want to do.
Well, I mean, they're pretty damn dangerous creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, so I should probably, for everyone who's not familiar with it, start by describing what actually is a basilisk. And to address the elephant in the room, it's not like in Harry Potter.
Oh,
so
less interested all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so basically they are kind of hybrid creatures. They are two main kinds that are sometimes called by different names. Imagine a snake with legs and kind of a chicken head, which sounds kind of funny, except for the people who know about chickens, because chickens are hardcore.
Well, I mean, no one goes anywhere near a chicken without going on the advanced self-defense course within the organisation, do they?
That's true. Yeah, and then we basically have the counterpart, which is sometimes called a cockatrice, so there's a bit of back and forth whether it's the same creature or not, and that's partly because their reproduction cycle is kind of weird, which we'll get to in a minute, but that's those are basically the opposite, so they're a bit more bird-like, but they have wings, but kind of a snake reptile head going on. Two sides of the same coin, you could say.
I mean, you can never walk past the research department and not hear the whole debate of, is a cockatrice a basilisk? Is a basilisk a blah, blah, blah? Honestly, they never shut up. You'd think they'd have better things to do.
You'd think so, but I
mean, technically that is their job.
Yeah. I guess in a way it's important that we understand what's going on with these creatures, but yeah, that in my priority list, that question wouldn't be quite on top. So, interesting thing about the name. It comes from Greek, and I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, obviously, but it comes from basiliskos, which is in itself a compound term, and it comes from basileus, which means king, and iskos, which is diminutive, so it's basically something like little king, kinglet. It sounds kind of cute. And there's two reasons for that. One is that most of the subspecies we've encountered kind of have a marking on their head, which looks like a little crown, or sometimes like these these church hats, the mitres.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're on about.
Yeah, so and it looks like they're wearing a crown, basically. Some even have some kind of frills around their head that give this kind of 3D appearance, and for that reason it's also called the King of Snakes, or Serpent King if you want to be a bit more dramatic. We have had reports that it can actually command other snakes with its hiss, though we haven't actually witnessed that in our colonies, but you know, in captivity it's often not the same as out in the wild, so jury's still out on whether that's actually a thing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was really trying to find out what those church hats are called, and so far the only thing I can find is a beretta, but that's a little bit of a random thing off on the side.
I've read the word mitre. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but
who knows? But anyway, back to it. Yeah, sorry,
back to
it. Little diversion.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, these things have been around Europe for ages. I think the first account we have of it is somewhere around 79 AD or something. So basically, more or less 2,000 years back, and it's all, of course, not very reliable. But
the initiative wasn't quite up and running by that point.
That took a while. Yeah, and basically it started mostly when farmers noticed that their roosters started laying eggs.
Okay.
You have an old rooster, and at some point it decides to lay an egg, which, you know, is not very common.
Going to say, that's roosters don't tend to lay eggs very often, but
they don't tend to. That's part of why this is a very rare creature to see. And the egg is then incubated by a snake, sometimes by a toad, but always some kind of reptile.
Okay. And would have thought it'd been eaten rather than incubated, but
you'd think so. But there seems to be something going on. We're not sure if it's because they are very different species, obviously, which shouldn't mate with each other. But we theorize if maybe there's some kind of parasite relationship involved. That there's something in the rooster and in the snakes that take part in this that forces them to do this, but we haven't had any physical evidence of that.
I mean, it's entirely possible. Weirder things have happened in our world.
Oh yeah, so many weird things. That's how you get a basilisk. How you get a cockatrice, if you want to call them that, is the other way around. So you take a snake egg, and it's hatched by a rooster.
Oh, okay. That sounds a little bit easier.
Easier, and it sounds a bit easier, and it's it makes it kind of sound like two sexes of the same species, even though they look very different in the end. But it lends evidence to the fact that they are kind of the same, even though their physical appearance is very different. Basically, everything else is very similar from the...
Sounds like that kind of nature versus nurture argument.
Yeah, and what they both have in common anyway is that they are poisonous and venomous, both, as all hell. So we talked about the Nucleavee last time with its breath destroying
toxic
crops.
Breath,
yeah. And it's more or less the same situation here. So the breath is poisonous or venomous, whatever you say in that Yeah,
Yeah, I think
in that
it's.
situation.
I think it's poisonous. If you bite it, you die. Venomous.
Yeah,
If it
but I
bites
don't
you.
bite breath. If
Oh,
someone breathes on me and I
you
die,
know how that works. Just
yeah.
to put it in context for people.
I always have the excuse that I'm not a native speaker, so I can say what I want. Yeah, so its breath is poisonous, its blood is poisonous, so much so that we have multiple texts from the Middle Ages where someone speared a basilisk in battle, and then the blood of the basilisk ran up the spear, got onto their hand, and they, as well as the horse, died from that. So
Oh,
it's a
wonderful.
level of poison that you can that
that's
you
a level-
basically don't encounter anywhere else.
That's a level of vindictiveness you don't encounter anywhere else. I'm
That's
perfectly
true.
honest.
Oh, they are so grumpy, grumpy and vindictive. That's why you have to make sure they're very happy. Where we try to,
I may die, but so will you.
yeah.
And you damn horse.
That's basically it. You know, it's in that regard, it's a bit like the honey badger. It doesn't care about anyone's life, not even its own.
Ah, well, the
And
honey
it's
badger, the
gonna
most
mess you
dangerous
up.
creature of all, isn't it, really?
It is.
Even the dragons don't deal with the honey badgers.
I mean, who can blame them? That's why I have to make very sure that they're very happy, because they don't only poison with their breath. You've probably heard that they have the ability to petrify people, and they do that with their gaze.
Yeah, they that's very much one of the reasons why I haven't interacted with them very much myself.
Yeah,
I'm not one
Yeah,
for. I like to look at things,
yeah.
and that's just, by the sounds of it, it's just a wonderful way to turn to stone.
It's true. It can happen very fast, and you know, you always have the young upstarts that are new in the organization, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so friendly with this basilisk. I can just cuddle with it." And
They look wonderful in the foyer afterwards.
I told you I had a close encounter last week, and
Oh yeah.
2 weeks ago by now, and yeah, one of our new-ish guys is not had his full first year in the organization, but he's basically grown up with around Basilisk. So even before he joined the organization, he was a farmer's kid, and for some reason they had, I think, 2 or 3 hatch at their farm, and
Really? And we didn't know about them.
it took a while. They were very secluded, and you know, the vet that they went to wasn't on our network, and so it's basically, it took until the vet retired that another one that was in contact with us looked at the thing and reported them to us, and that's basically how Steve, is his name, got recruited. Yeah,
But no, that's
basically.
quite interesting to say that they that he was actually around them outside of the organization. We usually, with the more dangerous creatures, we're on top of very quickly, but well, we're not omnipotent.
They kept the creatures for themselves. They knew it was not normal, so they took care that nobody saw it and all of that. So it was hard for us to take notice of them. Anyway, so he had this kind of special relationship with Basilisk all this time, and then we got stationed together this other week in Aachen, where we have a little colony of, I think it's 3 or 4 basilisks now.
Yeah.
And one of them is actually from his original farm. It got relocated there, so we can keep an eye on it. And he always did this thing where he went in without all of the protective equipment. You know, we usually have these glasses so we don't look at them directly, kind of like you've probably seen them, like a welding mask.
Yeah, I've come across a few of them. Yeah.
And of course, you don't see very much through them, but that's kind of the point. But yeah, Steve was always kind of sad. You said he wanted to see his little puppy and cuddle with him and all of that. And I knew it was gonna go bad one day or another. And then a couple of weeks ago, he was in there, had fed the others, and then his little basilisk was on his lap, actually, which is a rare thing to see, I will admit. Have you ever had a cat on your lap and its little toenail gets stuck in your pants and it panics because it's stuck?
No.
And yeah, so that's basically what happened there. And the thing about basilisks is they're very poisonous, but unless they are threatened or very annoyed, they usually don't try to kill you. But when it starts to panic, it's still an animal, so it
the instincts kick
very
in.
agitated. Yeah.
Oh
And
no.
it couldn't get its front leg loose, and it thrashed around, and it started petrifying everything around it, and you could smell the breath from outside of the enclosure, and it was a whole thing. So we didn't really have time to get the emergency weasel.
So the emergency weasel, you're gonna have to explain that one to me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. It's just I forget how absurd it is unless someone reminds me. So one of the few things that can actually kill a basilisk is a weasel. We are not sure why. Usually it results in both of them dying, but it's basically one of the few things you can do in an emergency situation.
So just let me get this straight in my head here. When we need to go to the nuclear option, we send in a weasel.
Basically, yes.
Wonderful.
Part of it is the odor, but we've tried to synthesize that and just work with the smell, and it works a bit. Keeps them away a bit, but it's not enough in it's not enough to disable them in any way. So there's something about the weasel. We assume that the weasel in itself is some kind of mythical creature that is just common enough that we kind of forgot that it's weird. It's also
I mean, that's kind of the aim, isn't it? Really, of the initiative, to try and introduce some of these creatures into the real world. But apparently, the weasel is so far one of the ones we've managed to.
Yeah, it looks like it. We usually don't do that because, as we've discussed, we don't want to kill the creatures, and we try to basically only use it to deter the basilisk to get to move away because it sees, oh crap, there's a weasel, better get out of here. I could see that Steve was beginning to turn into stone on parts of his body, and I didn't have time to really unlock the cabin with the emergency weasel that we had on site, and yeah. So the other thing you can do, which is not as effective, but basilisks really hate the sound of roosters. I loaded up on my phone.
Everyone in the end hates their fathers. So.
Yeah, that must be it. Daddy issues. So what I did was I loaded up rooster sound on my phone, turned it up as loud as I could, went in there, and somehow tried to dislodge the paw from poor Steve and get him out of there as quick as I could. And of course, I caught a good bunch of gays myself, and we both had to go into treatment after that, and we actually had to amputate Steve's finger. So he had his he had a scratch there, and the basilisk had a little scratch or whatever from thrashing around, and a little bit of blood got in there, and luckily we caught it, so we cut off the finger before it could spread. But
That's very lucky.
Yeah, it's really the only thing we could do there. And then I was basically out for a week. I think Steve took about I think he's still in a facility at this moment. I'm not actually sure. I haven't heard from him.
Well, I mean, at the very least, he'll be going through some disciplinary stuff. It's It's one of the most important parts of the training, isn't it? You don't forgo the safety measures.
Yeah. It was his upbringing. He thought our safety measures were just bureaucracy, and I guess that day he found out why we have them.
Well, again, it's one of those things where it's why we work in teams. It's why you have to go through the training. I mean, one day we'll get on to talking about some of the really dangerous creatures, like the encounters with things like Wendigos and whatnot. Those...
I hate those.
There's a reason why the teams only do one run with the Wendigos.
Yeah.
They are something else. But
so creepy.
We have these procedures to protect people, to protect our agents and whatnot, our agents, operatives, whatever you'd like to call them, and especially when dealing with something like a basilisk. Like, they can be, as you say, they can be docile, they can work with us quite nicely, but
it's still a wild animal, and as soon as the instincts kick in for whatever reasons, look at it in the wrong way and it lashes out, and
and that power that they've got. Do we have any idea how they have the ability to petrify? Obviously, we know in the animal kingdom, poisonous, venomous, it exists. It's a self-defense mechanism of the body. It's there, but petrification, that's a weird one. It's not something you see very often.
Yeah, we don't quite know how the petrification process works, but we have some theories on how it applies this, in fact, and we think that we see with our eyes by basically rays of light reflect off things, and they hit our eyes, and then our brain interprets basically these beams of light, and we think that these creatures basically do the opposite. So a while ago, when the ancient Greeks were doing their philosophy thing and trying to figure things out, some of them theorized, I think, what was it called? Was it Empedocles? Anyways, they had this theory of emission vision, basically. So where it's not light going into your eyes, but your eyes basically send out eye beams that touch things around them and basically gather this information and get back to the brain. So we assume that the basilisk is doing that kind of thing, and not only uses it to see, but also to transmit whatever is triggering the petrification. Yeah, that's one theory at least. We've also, I don't think it's technically turning to stone. I think it's more like muscle spasms and skin discoloring and all that.
Something like rigor mortis mess with pigments.
Something like that, which is bad enough, but I'm not a medical person, so you'd have to ask someone else about the details. But
well, I mean, that's why it's reversible for us sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, luckily.
To a certain degree. I mean, I do know that we've unfortunately lost individuals, both civilian and operator, to freak accidents and whatnot. Even though we can reverse it at a certain degree, but yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, if you're not fast enough with the antidote, then you're really out of luck. You don't have much time once you have an encounter to apply to reverse the process.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's made it easier. As I say, the addition of technology. I mean, what 20 years ago, an operator would not have been able to get a rooster's noise up anywhere near fast
Yeah,
enough.
that's true. Although
So
people, travelers did tend to carry around actual roosters for a while to feel safe on the road. This is not a joke. They actually carried around roosters just
the
to be safe from any basilisks they might encounter in the wild.
humanity is audacious, if nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, I have to wonder if the roosters would not run away in the when it comes to it, but who
But
knows?
yeah, and the only other real question I've got is so obviously as you've alluded to, we do keep some in captivity. Why would you say that? Why do you think it's necessary that we keep them in captivity?
Well, they are just very, very, very dangerous, especially if they're in the wild. As I said, if they're not happy and well cared for, they tend to petrify people around them. They can basically, similarly to the Nuclear, they can destroy crops with their poisonous breath, and yeah, they're basically. And when you encounter so in a while, they usually dig pits where they live in, and
Yeah.
around these pits you can see that all the plants are basically withered away and dead, and often there's dead animals as well, because there's just so much poison around. And if they get close to a water source for humans, you can
God.
imagine what that will do.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine them getting into the groundwater.
Yeah. And luckily, they are very rare. We've talked about the egg rooster thing, and that this doesn't happen very often. So we can keep most of them in in enclosures that are still, we're not confining them in a tiny space. They still live a decent life.
Yeah, we keep a. That's the other thing. That's obviously, again, we always want to keep pushing the fact that, yes, we're protecting the people from some of these dangerous creatures, but we are also trying to really protect these creatures from the people.
Exactly. I mean,
everything has a right to live, really, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Even if it is a venomous, poisonous snake chicken.
Yeah, that sums it up. Yeah, I mean they've been the target of some killing in history. I mean, whenever a rooster laid an egg, people would panic, and I mean, kind of, I get it. They would usually destroy the eggs, and I get why they would do it. But if we can protect the creatures from that, then I think that's a better outcome for everyone. I even have, quite amusingly, we have a recording from 1474 where there was a rooster was actually put on trial and sentenced to death for the heinous and unnatural crime of laying an egg.
Well, I mean, that's what they told the public. What they actually mean is the heinous and unnatural crime of potentially producing a basilisk.
Yeah, I mean that's the other part of it.
But again, that's one of those ones where we have to look at it and go, and that's why we're protecting the animals.
True.
Well, I mean, on that rather amusing note, that sounds like a good place to finish.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've talked about pretty much everything. If you encounter a basilisk in the wild, back away slowly and try not to annoy it, and you should be fine.
And then let the authorities know. Yeah, let the authorities know. We'll find out.
Or leave a comment here just for engagement.
Oh yes,
probably both.
Yeah. Actually, sod it. Don't call the authorities. Leave us a comment here. Might take us a little bit longer to find it, but we'll get around to it.
Oh yeah, social media. Yeah. So, what are we talking about next week? Can you give us a sneak peek on what we'll have there?
Oh, what are we going to talk about next week? I'm going to keep with another little theme of mine. I'm going to go and talk a little bit about the Kelpie.
Ooh, we're staying with horses.
Well, again, we have a theme of horses, we have a theme of water. I just quite like things like that. And Kelpie in mythology is a very, very interesting creature. Obviously, we do know that there is a breed of dog named Kelpie, but what we're talking about is water Kelpie. Again, another Scottish bent, which I'm guessing you're probably working out. I spent a little bit of my early career in Scotland.
I figured as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sounds interesting, and should tune in next week to hear all about it.
Yeah, I personally agree.
That's good.
There is
At least.
absolutely no ulterior motive to me asking you to tune in.
Yeah. Sounds like we have at least 2 fans of the podcast already.
Woohoo! But yes, otherwise, if you enjoyed it, please follow along. Leave us any kind of comments that you can. If you really, really enjoy it, rate the podcast for us. That feeds the algorithm, and we can continue to keep teaching people about the world that they are just not aware of.
Yeah.
Any last words, Chris?
Tune in, comment, all of the social stuff, and be wary around creatures.
Be wary around creatures. Goodbye.
Bye.